Hello, and welcome to Awaken Your Human Design. My name is Moni. This is Danny, and today we're going to be continuing our Holidays in Human Design series by talking about July 4th, Independence Day.
Oh my God, and this one fits, Moni. It's so good. We're saving the secret. The secret sauce is the left angle
Oh,
of this cross. Ooh, look out, everyone.
yeah. 4th of July was definitely one of the holidays that I first kind of noticed. I was like, oh, this is really interesting. This time of like individualism and provocation, these different things that come up. It was like the 4th of July, really obvious holidays that got me going down into this rabbit hole. So I'm pretty excited to talk to you about it.
Absolutely. This one's a good one.
Yeah. So thank you to everyone who is liking and watching and subscribing and commenting and enjoying all of this with us and our little deep dives. We really appreciate you. Thank you for being here with us, and let's get into it. Here we have Independence Day, the 4th of July, as celebrated in the United States. And the energies at this time are gates 39 and 38, gate 39 being about provocation and gate 38 being about opposition and the fighter. And the crosses at this time are the cross of tension, provocation, and individualism. And some of the stuff that comes up at this time with these incarnation crosses is that energy must be released outward to relieve tension, provoking talent, leadership, purpose, and spirit. Also using shock to provoke at a deep level. And the mutative shocking forces with intuitive knowing and staunch individualism that's not easily influenced.
Opposition. Yeah, and New Year's, that's so good. Oh, there's so much to say about this, and it leads to individualism, and that is the theme of the day. It's supposed to be anyways, and that's the 4th of July. It's what it sort of always has been, that one unique way. We're still technically unique in the world as it relates to the striking out of this country, and so it really just rings true here for sure. Provocation. What is provocation, Moni? Provocation is partly a reflection, just like 52 would ask. It's an assessment of what should I provocate, because plenty of times it does nothing, right? So part of it is, I think I want to flirt with you, maybe, but I wait to see what spirit comes. And 38 on the other side, that was 39, and 38 towards the spleen, the channel of struggle. This one is saying, I fight for a purpose. It's the pugilist, if you know what that term means.
The
And
fighter.
the fighter, exactly. And it's strictly basically boxer fighter, not just any old, not MMA, just boxer, basically. It's a pugilist. And this guy does this one thing, and it gives him a sense of purpose. And he looks to hone his thing and be just that one thing. And that's what 38, each one time there's a possible purpose worth fighting for, it deserves all its attention and all its might. And that also is like, you could practically fit that into one of the songs for the 4th of July, as a lyric, because that it describes Independence Day. The fighter and the provocateur, and it's grounded in the struggle and the working towards and the movement towards and the empowering towards purpose. At the same time, it can't get to the purpose without provoking and touching and awakening the spirit. And so in its awakening, sometimes they'll sit there and be still and like not do anything as a provocation. The spirit has to bump back up against it and keep saying, hey, hey, hey. But other times the provocateur is doing that, is outwardly provoking the spirit. So spirit and purpose must go together. They get fought for, they get provoked. It creates individualism. And this individualism, just as in this description here, it is to empower the other. It's just like gate 8, and it wants to contribute. When I contribute my fight, my provocation to what spirit pushes and helps move what direction of our purpose here on this 4th of July.
Yeah. And the idea of gate 38 is something worth fighting for, right? The 2838 is a channel. It's like the I have a dream channel. It's something that's worth fighting for, something that's for the ongoing survival. The 38 connects into the 28, which is part of the spleen, right? That's ongoing survival. What's worth fighting for?
Deeply intuitive about that, right? And if you take it all the way up through 57, the gentle, the capacity to penetrate beyond the pale as a potential. It's very specifically as a potential, meaning you don't always get it. It's only a potential, and that potential came true. in its essence, right? And here we are with our Independence Day almost 250 years later. Next year will be 250.
Yay. I have a little bit of history on the story of the 4th of July. So we celebrate American independence on the 4th of July every year. We think of July 4th, 1776 as a day that represents the Declaration of Independence and the birth of the United States as an independent nation. But July 4th, 1776 wasn't the day that the Continental Congress decided to declare independence. They did that on July 2nd, 1776. It wasn't the day we started the American Revolution either. That happened back in April 1775. And it wasn't the day Thomas Jefferson wrote the first draft of the Declaration of Independence. That was in June 1776, or the date on which the Declaration was delivered to Great Britain. That didn't happen until November 1776, or the date it was signed. That was August 2nd, 1776.
Wow.
So what did happen on July 4th, 1776? The Continental Congress approved the final wording of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. They'd been working on it for a couple days after the draft was submitted on July 2nd and finally agreed on all the edits and changes. July 4th, 1776 became the date that was included on the Declaration of Independence and the fancy handwritten copy that was signed in August. The copy now displayed in the National Archives in Washington, D.C. It was also the date that was printed on the Dunlap broadsides, the original printed copies of the Declaration that were circulated through the new nation. So when people thought of the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776 was the day they remembered. In contrast, we celebrate Constitution Day on September 17th of each year, the anniversary of the date the Constitution was signed, not the anniversary of the date it was approved. If we'd followed the same approach for the Declaration of Independence, we'd be celebrating Independence Day on August 2nd of each year, the day the Declaration of Independence was signed.
I totally get it.
Yeah. How did the 4th of July become a national holiday? For the first 15 or 20 years after the Declaration was written, people didn't celebrate it much on any date. It was too new and too much else was happening in the young nation. By the 1790s, a time of bitter partisan conflicts, the Declaration had become controversial. One party, the Democratic Republicans, admired Jefferson and the Declaration, but the other party, the Federalists, thought the Declaration was too French and too anti-British, which was against their current policies. By 1817, John Adams complained in a letter that America seemed uninterested in its past, but that would soon change. After the War of 1812, the Federalist Party began to come apart, and new parties of the 1820s and 1830s all considered themselves inheritors of the Jefferson and Democratic Republicans. Printed copies of the Declaration began to circulate again, all with the date July 4th, 1776 listed at the top. The deaths of Thomas Jefferson and John Adams on July 4th, 1826 may even have helped to promote the idea of July 4th as an important date to be celebrated. Celebrations of the 4th of July became more common as the years went on, and in 1870, almost 100 years after the Declaration was written, Congress first declared July 4th to be a national holiday as part of a bill to officially recognize several holidays, including Christmas. Further legislation about national holidays, including July 4th, was passed in 1939 and 1941.
Dude, that's such a rich history to all of it. It makes sense, by the way, just legally speaking, because the intention was the Declaration. So at the time, they agreed on the wording, and everyone said, okay, now send it out for signatures, but this is our agreed wording. That was the time that all the men were together and under God made the intention. So it was true at that moment. But then when the nitty-gritty had to get signed into contracts between the states as a way of operating, that thing's not a done deal until everyone signs it. So I think that I sort of get why they did it that way.
Yeah, it was neat to kind of go into it of like, I don't know that I knew that level of history and detail about it, so I thought it'd be kind of fun.
I was following the whole thing, and I was like, well, oh, and then I started getting a little lost. I was like, oh, bounce again. No, over here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then this year, July 4th lands on a Friday, and it's in the fourth line.
So yeah, so that's it. Just speaks to the movement once again, and in my opinion, it's right now. If it's in the fourth line, that means it's going to go through the fourth line, the juxtaposition, and then into the left angle. That's the changing zone of each transit week, right? So it's America's in the changing zone this time. Maybe that's a lesson. Maybe that's actually that sounds like a thing, Moni.
We stumbled on something interesting.
We
Ooh.
stumbled onto something interesting. We're in the changing zone. Into the provocation. The provocation sounds exactly like the same spirit that was the Declaration of Independence in the first place, of which there would have been tension. What are the other two gates? 21 and
40.
48.
Yeah, 48. Yeah. For tension, yeah. Would it be different for provocation though? Because that's left angle, or that goes into juxtaposition and left angle. Let me check.
Yeah, because the provocation itself of 39 is it. Hey, we've been in it this long. Read line 4 of 39.
Okay.
Because it's going to cover so much. It's going to cover the movement into the left angle.
Okay, so gate 39, line 4, temperance. Careful evaluation and assessment before taking action. The values of feelings and instincts in establishing the proper timing. The energy to provoke at exactly the right time. And then on the detriment side, the faulty belief that willpower alone can overcome any obstacle regardless of circumstances. The energy to provoke that ignores circumstances.
This whole process is speaking about no longer a left angle, a right angle process. Right angle processes are all I and self-absorbed, primarily. Sometimes third lines will be described a little differently because they're moving out of the right angle process. But the fourth line represents that whole movement over into that. So what's the fifth line? Oh, well, before that, this temperance that speaks to a fourth line quality, the quality that keeps steady the little network at hand enough so that stays a form of organized temperance, right? That was the word.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
it sounds like
then
a constitutional word.
this,
It just does.
yeah, line 5 is single-mindedness, the rare ability not to overcome but to bypass obstacles. The imagination to establish new patterns that make the obstacles irrelevant. The imaginative energy to provoke through bypassing obstacles.
It speaks to what the spirit wants moving into the fifth and sixth line anyways. Gate 55 on the other side. Wow. So basically, okay, make this work, temperance into been there, done that. Now that worked, and now I'm me for sure. This cross of individualism speaks to the American way. Think of how the West was conquered, but I mean lived in. Each town, each thing, people had to have this most rugged of spirits to choose to do that, each time unknown as well. Rugged individualism. And we're moving into the cross of individualism. I say it's just fitting. And I'd like to see a couple flags and some fireworks and some yahoos with some shotguns at this point. It's not complete till, right?
Yeah, it's part of the day. So once we go into the juxtaposition cross of provocation and the left angle cross of individualism, it's 51 and 57. So there you have the shock and penetration.
That's a completely individual cross. Those are all in the individual circuitry, centering and individual. It's got them both.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, for individualism.
Yeah. Wow. That just makes sense. So the warrior spirit must be an individual because its melancholy is there's nothing new under the sun. And in that melancholy, they're in it. It's like, I'm not in anything new under the sun. They can't live there. It has to be unique. That's the only thing that's ever new, Moni.
Do we want to talk about gate 38, line 4 and 5?
Sure.
So gate 38, line 4 is investigation, analysis with strengthens opposition, the detective who develops or the insider who accepts a joint opposition whose success can only be based on trust, the energy to recognize who can be of value in times of struggle.
The opportunist. Totally. Yep, that's our grounding. So the nine-centered opportunist, because that word opportunist gets a bad rap, or it can. I don't know if it still does. It shouldn't, but in a nine-centered realm, in our current form, that is towards communion. The opportunity is literally to just keep as a glue certain things together. Whatever that little fixed line of thought was that was keeping it together. is to keep it there. Keep that glue in place, no matter what. And that's what they do. The fourth line, to keep their externalizing.
And then gate 38, line 5 is alienation, a stage in opposition when one is totally isolated. The ambition and concentration to endure, the energy to stubbornly fight alone.
Individualism. Ultimately, in the nine-centered being, that is still designed to, at some point, empower the other, right? Because that's the keynote of the individual circuitry, the knowing circuit. So you just have to realize that's there to empower. Staunch individualism, it just keeps coming back to that.
The last interesting thing I wanted to bring up is that the opposite of this time. So for July 4th, the 39 and the 38 are lit up. And then if you flip that for the sun to be in 38 and the earth to be 39, it's actually New Year's. It's the time of New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. So these are kind of like mirrors of each other. So 4th of July and New Year's are mirrors of each other, which I find very interesting, as they're like the two big main firework holidays is the 4th of July and New Year's. And there is this like tension and kind of fighty provocation associated with both of them.
Yes, they're wicked is. Yes, absolutely. There's a certain amount of extra showing up, and you show up unique is the thing. No one goes, everyone's thinking about their New Year's, and it doesn't matter who you are, you're contemplating something because the year's changing over, right? That's normal. Well, who contemplates? There's only one contemplator. So somewhere in this world, we get to say there's the great I am. Actually, there is the great I, isn't there? That's the only thing that I know of that contemplates I find that very unique. I want to be free and outcome. You know how potent that Declaration of Independence really is, obviously, right? Do you remember some of the things it said? To cast off the chains, and these people, they eat out our substance. They used all kinds of old words, and it's like, and the king's injustice takes us to far courts, and and these egregious injustices, and a time come when a man must choose its own way, and among nations take its place. And as friend we will be this, but as foe we will stand. That's like big language, you know what I mean? To the King of England. The most powerful army in the world. I mean, most prized possession. The king's going to come and chop all their heads off. Seven-centered style. So we're still in seven-centered land. It's not 1781 yet. It's just approaching. It's like where we are in comparison to the mutation-ish, where everything's changing.
It's like, insane. Of all the ideas that became the United States, there is a line that's at the heart of all the others. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security.
Bring it up.
When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the cause which impel them to separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence will indeed dictate that these governments, long established, should not be changed for light and transient causes. And according all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, which evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having indirect object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. They have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name,
That's God, by the way.
yeah, and
Yeah.
by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from the allegiance to the British crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that is free and independent states, that they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do, and for the support of this declaration, with firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other's lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was a lot.
55 men signed that, and that pledge was like, that was a serious pledge back in the day. That's some nine-centered language. That's the approach of it. That's the first of that language on this planet, essentially, which I find stunning. The last line was really, if you just got into it, and to these ends, we pledge our lives, our liberty, our property, and our sacred honor, something like that. So that started the country. They were complaining about all the stuff that has been recognized at times, throughout till today.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it.
There's a tendency for tyrants to be tyrants. Like
Tyrants should be tyrants.
Tyrants
That's
are always
all
going
it takes. That's all it is.
It
That's
just
what
takes one jerk to ruin the party. So tyrants are always going to try to be tyrants, and there's that people have the freedom, the right, the duty, the obligation to throw off tyranny based on having these rights, these unalienable rights by our Creator. We have these rights, and so if a tyrant is going to try to be a tyrant, we have the right and the duty to throw them off and secure for our own future. That's powerful.
Under divine providence, our own freedom as ordained by nature, and nature's God, something like that. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So they mention God. They mention God at least 4 times in this thing. At the very end, nature's God.
Well, that there's rights beyond that. Yep. Who is in charge? They may be king, but the king doesn't, like, the king is below the law of God.
He's a dude.
Yeah.
Puts his pants on one leg at a time, like everyone else.
We have these rights, unalienable rights by a creator that is beyond the laws of man, that we have rights beyond the laws of man. That's huge.
Totally. And it's all very biblical, because
it has to be.
God gave us these, and all the animals and the things and the land and the seas. I forget the rundown. He gave a whole itinerary. It's on a receipt.
Well, we only have rights because there is a God that gives us to them, because how else, what else would you base that upon? Well, I deserve them because I deserve them. According to who? According to who is in charge. So if somebody says you have rights, but then a bigger guy with a bigger stick comes around, well, now you don't have these rights.
You don't. Oops.
Whereas if you have rights that are beyond human, that are unalienable, that they are natural, that they are from God, from source, from creator, from this divine intelligence that created us, then you have these rights that nobody can take away. If there's not a God, then there are no natural rights.
That's exactly right. And it's the whole natural law thing. You may have heard that term, natural law. That is our Bill of Rights. That is what this country ultimately needed to get to, and it was headed there. I'm just stunned at the nine-centered talk, because in giving it up to God, which was the right thing to do, It was as if they were recognizing without the language, they were giving it up to love pouring in the direction of beauty and communion, finding its spirit. All nine-centered language, like straight up. Happy Independence Day, everyone.
Happy Independence Day. Enjoy it. Be grateful for it because we're lucky to have it, and go to other places in the world they're not so lucky.
Go America.
Yeah, go America. Happy Independence Day. Enjoy the fireworks, enjoy the picnics and barbecues and all the fun things that you're doing. Enjoy your loved ones. Appreciate all you got because we're lucky to have it.
Like and subscribe and get yourself read and help spread the word.
Absolutely. And we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye, everyone.